Good evening and welcome to the Taft City Council Successor Agency Joint Regular Meeting for Tuesday, February 5th, 2013. As a courtesy to all, please silence your cell phones. And as a reminder, all writings or documents provided to a majority of the City Council regarding any item on this agenda is made available for public inspection in the lobby of the Taft City Hall, 209 East Kern Street, Taft, California, during normal business hours. Tonight, as always, we will begin with the Pledge of Allegiance, which will be led by Mr. Cryer, and an invocation by Cindy Brett Schneider. Please rise.
Salute. Pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Psalm 91, verse 2. I say to the Lord, you are my refuge, my stronghold. You are my God, the one I trust. Would you join me in prayer? Father God, you are indeed my God, the one I trust. Lord, we often forget to go to you with all of our needs and trust in your love. Tonight, Father, we lift all of this community for your loving care. Father, help the leaders of this community seek wisdom from you. Grant them insight and knowledge to do the work you have called them to do. Lord, give us all compassion to care for the many needs and concerns in Taft. May the grace and peace of God our Father and the Lord Jesus Christ be with us tonight and always. Amen.
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 Thank you, Cindy. Thank you, Mr. Cryer. May we have a roll call, please?
Mayor Linder,
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Cryer,
Here.
Councilmember Miller,
Here.
Councilmember North,
Here.
and Councilmember Waldron.
Here.
Thank you. First item on the agenda tonight is a study session, which is a budget presentation by Teresa Binkley, Finance Director. You're on.
Good evening, Mayor, council members. Tonight we're here to discuss the proposed budget for fiscal year 2012-13. So tonight we're just, we're going to go over some budget highlights of changes that and items that are reflected in this budget. Tonight, we're going to begin with discussing the changes that were made to lower expenses.
Mrs. Binkley, can we make it a little clearer that we had a budget and are we revisiting the budget for 12-13? Because we had a budget in place. Am I correct or not correct?
No, we adopted a resolution back in June to do a continuing budget from our fiscal year ending 2012 budget. We have never adopted a actual budget for 2013.
Okay, because it makes it sound like we haven't been doing anything with the budget. We have done something and had this continuing resolution, so.
Yes, we did a continuing resolution for the 2012 budget.
Thank you.
So we'll have some levels to go by. We have had several budget meetings in between June until now in discussing how we're going to cope with the closure of the CCF and how we're going to balance our budget. So it has been a trying year, many meetings and many discussions on what we're going to do. So what is reflected in this budget is that our police chief retired, and we hired a new police chief. The payroll changes and allocations The former was 75% to the correctional facility and 25% to the police department. Now, the new police chief is, since he is doing a lot of time and effort to try to get the correctional facility, right now, 50% of his salary is going to the correctional facility and 50% to the police department. Our grant administrator had resigned. A large portion of her salary goes to grants. It's based upon a maintenance of effort toward each activity that she works on. But within the general fund, there was some money budgeted in administration and in planning for her to do the grant items for general fund. So those have been decreased now since that position is empty. We have a new city manager that is performing 2 functions. He's working as city manager and as the public works director. He also is currently at a salary that is lower than what the previous city manager was. So we have a savings from the one position for the city manager, and then a savings again from not having a second individual working as the public works director. We have a new enterprise zone. Instead of hiring a new person, what we have done is we did interviews, but we ended up hiring someone that had already been doing that position. So that was a transfer. Her salary was already in general fund, so it was a transfer, her being in general fund from the administration over into the enterprise zone. Also, her salaries being divided up again based upon her maintenance of effort, a large portion going to the enterprise zone, but a little bit going to city clerk and a little bit to administration. We have a administrative tech, which is the assistant to the city manager. Her salary now is being allocated to other funds along with the general fund in accordance with the city manager's salary as it's being allocated out to other funds, because she's assisting him in those other duties in the wastewater treatment plant, the sewer, the refuse, and the transit facility. She's assisting in doing those other activities, so her salary is not 100% general fund now. Council took action. All vacant positions have been unfunded in the 12-13 budget. So there's no positions, nobody's been terminated, but any position that was vacant, they are no longer being funded in this budget. The next one is a temporary move for right now. We have some reserve monies in the grant, the COPS fund, which is a Fund 50. So the police officers that are performing duties at the schools, their salaries now have been reallocated over to that grants fund. So we're using those reserve balances. This is only a temporary fix until, because those funds, we have approximately 350,000. So those funds we're going to go ahead and use down. So we're watching them, monitoring them very closely. We do have enough to last us through the end of the year and just barely through the beginning of next year. So we're going to have to make changes and adjustments in the 13-14 budget if we're not able to find some additional revenues. Another item, quite some time ago, we've addressed overtime, and there was some departments that there was overtime that was a necessity. Well, we've readdressed the overtime again, and are still, even the items where we need coverage shifts and things like that, we're trying to work out other ways instead of having overtime, trying to cover those shifts in some other means and trying to lessen the overtime. Other items that have been changed is council took action to stop their stipends beginning January 2013. Administration personnel costs are lower because of the new city manager, and salaries are now being divided and allocated out differently than the previous city manager because of the new city manager's duties that include working on public works. City attorney, there was a decrease in his contract, but on the other side, we had additional attorney fees for union negotiations. In the planning department, there are 3 positions, the GIS, the grant administrator, and the assistant planner, that are now not funded. Those positions were vacant. In the finance department, there was an assistant, that I had an assistant, and that it was being divided between Public Works and myself. Now, that position was changed to the administrative tech that's assigned to the city manager. So the position assigned to myself in the finance department as my assistant has been eliminated. In the fire department, we renewed the fire department contract. The first year of the new fire department contract for this year was a savings of $14,730. It was less than last year. We actually reviewed all the administrative assistants, their salaries, and how they, in their maintenance of effort, what functions were they doing, and making sure that if they were doing any type of function that was outside of general fund, whether it was doing reports for transit or anything that has to do with any other funds other than general fund, we ensured that their salaries were allocated out appropriately and not having general fund take the full burden. And lastly, there's been new MOUs in the public safety and the general fund, where now they are paying 7% of their PERS. I normally show this to you guys, and it shows what we budgeted and what the actual expenditures had come in for the last several years. Here, what I'm trying to show is that our estimated 2013 budget, we have done a job of trying to get the expenditures down. As you can see here, they're close to what you could say is 2005 numbers. It's been a real struggle to get these down, but I believe we've achieved it at this point with all the changes that I've discussed, and there was other things. We try to ensure that all costs, real costs like utilities and anything that we know that is going to be a cost, fuel, is budgeted appropriately, and trying to make sure that we're not going to say, well, that's uncontrollable costs, so it is what it is. We were trying to actually go through the budget and make sure that all costs in the budget are to what we believe would be the true cost. In this bar graph that I've shown here, the budgeted expense, you want the budgeted expense to be higher than what the actual expense was. When you actually chart it out, it looks really good. It looks like there's been a few years the actual expense came over, but it looks like a good picture. But then when you go to the next page and add in the revenues, you'll see that you actually want your actual cost. You'll want your actual cost, the middle line, to be closer to the revenue, which is the red line, the last line. So in reality, what you're looking at is, whoops, my mouse is going crazy, sorry. So in reality, what you're seeing here is that in earlier years, in 2005, 6, we were pretty good there. 2007, we had something that I don't know what happened there, but then in 2008 we got back on track. But beginning in 2009, 10, and 11, actual costs started coming in more than what revenues were. So when we get to 2013, as you can see where our budget is, it's in line and close to the actual revenues that were received in 10, 11, and 12. So here I'm trying to show that the budget that we have created is trying to stay consistent with what we actually received in revenues in the past 3 fiscal years. Now, since a lot of the changes that we made in the budget have to do with salaries, payroll cost and expense, I created this little chart here to show the percentage of what the actual general fund expense were from 2007 to 2012, excluding capital. So it's just purely operating expense. And then what safety personnel costs were, what non-safety, and then the total of expenditures and the percentage. So as you can see, in 2007 it was 70%, but then it goes down to 65 and 57. It kind of varies because you have to be really careful and ensure that the general fund actual expenditures could be lower or higher, even though your salary cost, you could even stay constant. But if your expenditures go down, it makes your overall percentage look higher because of the division, the item that you're dividing it by. So if you look at 2011 and 12, in 2012, we took some measures because there was some positions vacant at that time, so our salary cost had gone down. But if you look at 2013, it appears that the percentage overall has gone up to 66%, but it appears higher because we have extremely lowered our anticipated general fund actual expenses because we're trying to cut our cost. So on the next page here, if you were to compare, this gets a little, but it's not. But if our actual expenditures remain the same as 2012, if it was 6.4, but we made the payroll changes that we have made, it would have lowered our personnel costs down to 57%. So this is kind of showing that we have made $271,000 in actual payroll changes. But the overall expenditures that we are anticipating to be lower is $876,000. So it makes your percentage look a little bit higher than what it is. But I wanted you to see that we have actually made some great progress in decreasing personnel cost and trying to stay within our budget. Now, does anybody have any questions? I know that's a little confusing, but I want to make sure everybody understood that.
Actually, it's very clear, as a matter of fact.
Okay. Okay, now we're going to discuss a little bit about revenues. For the 2013, of course, we have a decrease in revenue of $876,889 from the closure of the correctional facility. In our 2013 budget, we estimated that property tax are to remain the same as 2012 level, which is $617,530. Sales tax is estimated to remain at the 2012 level at $1,750,414. Transit occupancy tax, the TOT tax, is estimated at approximately $35,000. Business license fees, when I did the budget, I estimated that they would slightly increase. We passed the new ordinance on business license since then, and at the Finance Committee meeting, we did discuss that they have increased, not like large, but they have increased, so that will come in higher than what's budgeted. Franchise fees are budgeted at $355,274, which is approximately $19,000 more than 2012. Last year, the city adopted a new ordinance and changed the fees for planning and building. Based upon the revenue that they are bringing in, they are recovering the cost for their services. It is paying for the services that they are providing, so it appears that general fund is no longer subsidizing those functions. And lastly, in this budget, we're requesting a transfer in from general fund of $628,486. $66,200 is what is in the budget to be requested for actual capital items. The remaining amount of $562,286 is being requested to pay for current operating expenses. In the calculation, sales tax, we've only received 3 months of sales tax, and we discussed this in the Finance Committee. Board of Equalization is extremely slow on processing and receiving payments. We should have received it more than that, but we've only received 3. So when I do the estimated and annualize what we received, I anticipate that we will receive anywhere from $200,000 to $300,000 more than what I budgeted if it stays on the exact same path that it is going right now. We were anticipating a business to close, but as of this point, we have found that there is no plans of that at this time. The new Hertz is opening, so we have some good things going. So unfortunately, when Hertz does get their official opening, time they file their first sales tax return, and then time we actually get it remitted to us, it may be 6 to 9 months, depending on the quarter when they finally do file. So there is a lag time in that, so that won't be reflected in this budget year, but that's a positive thing. And then of course the Dollar General. So like I said, if everything keeps going as planned, I do anticipate that sales tax will come in higher. And lastly, we're going to discuss reserve balances. Now, these reserve balances, it's just in generic terms. They do not include what would be committed or reserved. They're just letting you know what is available in there in the reserve balances, because as you know, like general fund, you have committed, but that means that you have a council item, a resolution that says that you're committing $2.5 million for the potential to reopen a fire department. The passing of GASB 54 redefined the definitions and terms of reserve balances. So the fire department money is considered committed. So based upon those, from 2007 to 2012, there's your fund balances. In 2009, there was a decrease in general fund reserve balances for the purchase of the railroad property. From 2009 to 2010, we had various street projects that went on that we spent money. And then in 2011, if you see the other fund balance, they decreased. That it was in the closure of the correctional facility. We went ahead and they had equipment replacement funds that we got approval to spend on unemployment costs, what was available in there. So, and then plus they had some other little reserve monies that we all spent, that got spent down. So that's why that decreased. And then, and then in 2012, in the general fund, it decreased from the loss of CCF for us to continue to pay for the unemployment costs and other costs that we have had in the correctional facility. So any questions there?
So our total fund amounts now are 8 million for, I mean, that's our total money. Seems a little low. We've always been around 12, 14,000, or a million. Is that 5 million in the
Well-
wastewater treatment fund?
These are
All the
just
different-
monies in the reserve balances, not in the actual fund balances. There are other monies in fund balances.
Oh, okay.
Do you know what the total is on pool?
It's about 13,
It's almost 14 million.
yeah.
Oh, okay, okay. I got it down.
Okay, gentlemen, questions?
Teresa, that was very comprehensive and a lot simpler than the typical 128-page document that we read through. So thank you very much for all your efforts, because you laid it out there so that a layman could understand where we were and where we are and how we got there and why, and what everybody has done to get this budget in line, because the next year's budget, which has already been talked about at length, is going to be a flush budget. There's no more, and I'm sure that the council will reiterate that, and that is, we are in agreement that that's as low as it goes. We worked very hard to try to reopen the CCF, and those efforts are ongoing, but the cost to this community, based on the original business plan, was great. We're still involved in litigation regarding the recapture of those monies, and we'll let everybody know how that plays out. But we, like so many other municipalities, were hit, and we were hit hard. Sacramento, they don't care when they do those things. And so here we are. But everybody's doing a very good job in owning up to it and getting very creative. And the effort, for those of you on the other side of the camera, the effort undertaken by all of city staff and all the city employees is to continue to provide the service that they have and make sure that everybody still has a job, so when we get things turned around, then we can ramp back up. But to go to the easy ones, which is furloughs, and that's sending people home and still paying them, is to reduce the service to the taxpayer, which is the customer. And here again, that's one of the emphasis placed on these efforts by city staff and by the city employees. So thank you very much, Teresa. I applaud your efforts, and thank you for that presentation. That's all I have. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Grier.
And no comment.
Mr. Waldron.
I too would like to thank Teresa for all of her hard work. Thank you.
Mr. Miller.
Especially staff. I think we all face reality now, and staff has stepped up, and they're not worrying about keeping their jobs, they're about doing their jobs and doing the best job they can for the taxpayers that, make the city run. So we're trying to be inventive and thinking out of the box and devising all kinds of ways to increase our income and lower our expenses, and we're slowly chunking away at. We do have a meeting, I think, set for February 18th, is that?
19.
With LA County, and supposedly at that time we'll know one way or another about the CCF. So we'll just hope that, they see the light, that this is the best place to put prisoners. So I'll get us back where we need to be. So anyway, I want to thank you, Teresa, for a nice presentation.
You're welcome.
I would concur with the comments. Having the privilege to sit on the Finance Committee and see the nuts and bolts working of this budget, and certainly what staff has come up with, and I keep saying that we have people working hybrid positions now, and that is that they're not locked into a single job description, but what they are doing is they're doing the job, and they're doing a piece of this job, and they're doing some of that job. And what I find is very refreshing is when I come into City Hall, it seems to be people are buzzing a little bit. People seem to me to be a little bit happier because I think they're busier and they're being part of the solution. And I applaud city staff for stepping up and doing it. We still got a road to go down. I don't know where we're going to come up with another $500,000+ in cuts in order to balance the budget, with the exception if we should find a tenant for the CCF, which will operate in a much different business plan than it's done in the past. We've talked about that extensively, that we will never again, as far as I understand, we will never again, if we open this CCF, find ourselves in a position to be attaching the citizens' money for the closure of a state facility. And that's exactly what happened, and that's what's put us in this position. We all know that. So I applaud you and your staff and all city staff for their out-of-the-box thinking. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
You're welcome.
And I have to ask, why are you wearing a cast?
I had surgery yesterday.
Oh, okay, so you didn't hit anybody.
No, that's why everybody keeps asking, no. I didn't tell Craig because I didn't want him to be upset thinking I might not be here tonight.
I'm just a mean guy. We don't have.
So did you give her an hour for surgery? Or?
We don't have time for surgery around here.
Yeah, I only had a few hours. And then I had a grandbaby born, so I rushed to the hospital for that after the surgery.
Oh, wow. Well, congratulations on the grandbaby, and I hope your arm feels better soon.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Teresa. Okay, moving on to item number 2, approval of the final budget for fiscal year 11-12 and proposed budget for fiscal years 12 and 13. Mr. Jones.
Attached here too are the final operating and capital expenditure budgets for the fiscal year 2011-12 and the proposed operating and capital expenditure budgets for fiscal year 2012-13. These budgets maintain the conservative fiscal policies of the City Council. These budgets were reviewed by the Finance Committee on January 29th and were recommended to be presented to the Council for adoption. Budgets with respect to certain grant funds, which are multi-year fixed agreed amounts for specific activities to be performed in accordance with contract agreements with state and federal agencies, are controlled by the guidelines, laws, and regulations of the grants agreements. Hence, they are not included in these budgets.
Thank you. At this time, I would entertain a motion to adopt a resolution entitled a resolution of the City Council of the City of Taft adopting the City of Taft final budget for fiscal year 2011 and 12 and proposed budget for fiscal year 2012 and 13.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Mr. Miller.
No comment.
Mr. Noor.
I don't believe it needs any additional discussion, not on my part.
Thank you, Mr. Waldrop.
I have no comment.
Mr. Cryer.
No comment.
And I concur with all your no comments. May we have a roll call, please?
Councilmember Miller,
Yes.
Councilmember Noor,
Yes.
Councilmember Pryor,
Yes.
Councilmember Waldrop,
Yes.
Mayor Linder.
Yes, and that passes on a 5-0 vote. Item number 3 is approval of a final budget for fiscal year 2011. Oh, this is for the successor agents, I'm sorry. Approval of the final budget for fiscal year 2011, 2012, and proposed budget for fiscal year 2012, 2013. Mr. Jones.
Mayor, it's the same language as
Yeah.
prior?
And this is for the successor agency, though, correct?
Yes, with the exception of that.
Okay. Very good. At this time, I would entertain a motion to adopt resolution entitled a resolution of the Taft Successor Agency adopting final budget for fiscal year 2011 and 12 and proposed budget for fiscal year 2012 and 13.
Motion.
Second.
Okay, very good. We have a motion and a second. Mr. Noor.
No additional comments. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Mr. Cryer.
Same. No comment.
Mr. Miller.
No comment.
No comment.
Mr. Waldrop. And I have no comment. May we have a roll call, please?
Councilmember Pryor,
Yes.
Councilmember Miller,
Yes.
Councilmember Noor,
Yes.
Councilmember Waldrop,
Yes.
Mayor Linder.
Yes, and that passes on a 5-0 vote. Thank you. Item number 4 is citizens' request for public comments. This is the time and the place for the general public to address the city council on matters within its jurisdiction. State law prohibits the council from addressing any issue not previously included on the agenda, and the council may receive comment and set the matter for a subsequent meeting. Please limit your comments to 5 minutes, and the only person wishing to speak is Kathy Oren with the Chamber of Commerce.
Good evening. My name is Kathy Oren. I live at 513 Hilltop Court, and it's a pleasure to be with you this evening. Of great interest to all is the Chamber Installation Business Meeting and Awards Dinner that is happening this Thursday at the Recreation and Parks District Assembly Room. The social hours at 6 o'clock. Thank you very much, Mr. Cryer, for the tumbleweeds agreeing to do the bar. And the dinner is at 7 p.m. Our chamber member, Hodels, will be doing the dinner. And of course, you are all invited. I've received information that most of you are coming. If you have not, let us know. You are, because of your stature in the community, most welcome. I will take late reservations from any of our city people, but we love to have you there. We are going to be celebrating many things. We have new directors for our board of directors. We have new officers, but I would like to publicly acknowledge the award recipients. Businessman of the Year, Ray Smith, Acme Jewelry Company.
Good selection.
Businesswoman of the Year, Tina Lycum, Domino's Pizza.
Very good.
Business of the Year, Bob Hampton's West Side Waste Management. Volunteer of the Year, and again, we could not make up our minds. This seems to be very difficult for us. But I'm happy to announce Don Maxwell, who spends most of his time at the West Kern Oil Museum, and Mike Long, who spends most of his time at Laborers of the Harvest. And our Community Service Award winner this year is Bill Black, who said to me when I talked to him, just goes to show what picking up garbage can do for you. So there is a surprise thank you award that will be given, but I'm not going to tell you to whom. We're very excited to be able to give these awards, and we have reservations at this point of 160 people, which appears to be somewhat of a record for this dinner. We're very proud of that. We're looking forward to a great evening, and once again, you're all invited. Just give me a call. I'll save you a seat. The Greater Taft Economic Development Authority's ad hoc committee meetings are up and running. The next meeting number 2, will be a week from tonight at the West Kern Water District. And they meet from 5 to 7 on the 2nd and 4th Tuesdays for the next 6 months. The first meeting was very informative, and the good news is we started at 5 and we were done by 7, just as we said we would be. So I'm very excited that this has taken off.
Can you remind us again, Mrs. Oren, who the members of that committee are?
Spotlight, please.
There
Do you have a
are
list?
25 of them.
Oh, okay. Too many.
Yes. I will tell you that we were given a prescription, basically, from the facilitators from the University of, Cal State Fresno University. And they suggested, from their experience, the categories of folks that would be most useful so that we got a broad kind of experience. And we did our due diligence in attempting to have exactly what was prescribed to us by these folks. Unfortunately, many people were unable to attend twice a month for 6 months. So after we made that initial sweep, we made some decisions about who we actually wanted on the committee. And those folks have been very willing to participate. I know our mayor, Linder, is part of that. City manager Craig, Michael, who is chamber board president for a few more hours, and also the chairperson of our Greater Taft Economic Development Authority. And I know I'm going to forget
Mike Wages.
Mike Wages, our city planner. So, and just a host of folks. And I will be glad to bring you a list next time and just give it out to you. Yes, Craig.
Next week's meeting is a presentation by the city, an overview of the city and city operations.
Thank you for that. I neglected to note
The only reason
that.
why I know that is because
You're
myself
on.
and staff has been spending time putting together a presentation.
Well, that's wonderful. It's a wonderful learning experience, and for folks that want to know how things get done it's a great chance to do that. And the people in the room know a lot about their particular piece of the pie. It's helpful to know how that fits into other pieces of the pie. And so I appreciate you telling us that, Craig. I'll look forward to that. I look forward to all of those meetings. They're very interesting. The Greater Taft Economic Development Authority is going to be sponsoring a tour of Taft, which is just a meeting. We're going to meet at the City Hall here about 9 o'clock on February the 15th, and we're going to tour Taft, noting those areas that may be less than attractive in our community. The neat thing about the Greater Taft Economic Development Authority is that it encompasses both city and county land. So when we look at our community as a whole, we don't have to worry about, well, that's county, that's city. What we need to look at is, okay, this isn't working for us as a community. We need to address this. And regardless of where the situation sits, it can be addressed by the authority. So again, we are meeting to take a little tour, and hopefully much good will come of that. And lastly, I'd just like to acknowledge that the film, A Girl Walks Home Alone at Night, will wrap up for Taft this Wednesday night. They've been wonderful folks to work with from our perspective. We've heard wonderful things about them and wonderful things from them. And I have to say to you, they came into my office a couple weeks ago and said, we don't understand why there's any empty spaces on Center Street. This is really a cool town. And I said, well, I'm going to quote you on that. They've been really nice people to work with and have been good for business in town. It'll be interesting to see if our TOT tax and our sales tax is more than expected as a result. I also got a phone call today by another production company that wants to do some filming in Taft, and I directed them to the Board of Trade. They're interested in the police department. I directed them to the police department. So that's what's on board for us, and appreciate the time to share that with you. Thank you.
Thank you, Kathy. Moving on to the treasurer's report.
Good evening.
Evening.
Treasurer's report, pretty much the same as the last month. Nothing's changed much. We've still got a little over $13 million total cash and investments. And the only change that's disturbing is the negative, the transit fund. It continues to grow. It's now $1,400,000, which is up $100,000 since October, the end of October. This report is as of the end of December. And it's just that the state isn't paying. This is grant money.
Gee, who would have guessed?
Yeah.
Yeah. It's alarming, isn't it?
Yeah.
We have to front the money, and we get reimbursed by the state, and the state's not doing their part. So that's where we are.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ben. Appreciate it. All right, moving on to council statements, non-action. Mr. Waldron.
Well, I wasn't going to tell on myself, but I was really involved in learning this computer, and my son come by and helped me get it started, the younger generation, you know, and I got it all up, and so I was going to, okay, that's good, I'll start studying, and I pushed my arrows to move the stuff, and nothing happened. I was pushing here. I'd even delete, Control-Alt-Delete, and I'd hit something to turn it off. I'd start all over, and I accidentally hit the screen, and it moved. And I said, watch.
Go figure.
You know, I mean, it's a touch screen. I'm a hunt and pecker on a regular computer, but I just wanted to tell on myself how neat these things are, and
It's a learning.
everything keeps getting more complicated. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Waldron. Mr. Cryer.
Thank you, Mayor.
I'd like to thank all the service organizations we have here in Taft. You know, they do wonderful jobs. I encourage everybody, and like I'll keep doing it, remind everybody throughout the years, you need to join, volunteer, and join the Rotary, the Lions, the Kiwanis, the Harapanas. They all do good in the community to help the children, to help the less fortunate, and they're here to help each other. And I'd like to encourage everybody to have time to volunteer and be part of those organizations, because we're really blessed here in Taft to have all these organizations. Most cities only have 1 or 2. We're blessed to have 5, you know, and we got to take advantage of it. And another thing too is I was reading today's paper in Bakersfield, California, about all the crimes since SB 109 was passed, and our governor went ahead and let, you know, criminals out of the prison and getting back to the counties and stuff. And now you can too be blessed to be here in Taft. Crime has gone up a little bit in Taft, but not nearly as much as happened in Kern County, Western Kern County, and also in Bakersfield, where like homicides are up from last year, 88.9%. Rape over 43% higher over last year. Robberies up 23%. The only thing that's gone down, I can't understand why, but aggravated assault is down about 9.5%. Burglaries up 15.6, larceny 17.4, auto theft 35.7% higher than a year ago. You know, it's just unbelievable, and I just want to thank our police department for a job well done. It was probably a difficult task for them to arrest somebody and they're out real quick from their jails and they get them out, but keep sending them back in and them know they're not wanted here in Taft, but we're very fortunate to have a safe city that we have right now, and I really have to give my hands out to the police department and the job that our police officers are doing. They're doing a fantastic job, and my hands give them a lot of kudos for that. I'd like to thank the Chamber of Commerce for the job they've done, especially getting ready for the event coming up for installation. I want to thank Michael Long, the president from last year, for the job he's done for the last 2 years, being on president, and all the other board directors that we have that put out and did things and volunteer to be there. They don't get paid for the job. They take time for their businesses to be there to help make Taft and the West Side a better place to do business and promote the West Side and make it a place to reside in, play in, and raise a family. Like I say, we're really blessed here on the West Side, what we have, and I was just thankful to be part of it. That's all I have, Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Cryer. Mr. Waldrop.
Well, yours.
You already got me.
Did I already get you?
Yes, sir.
I was watching you try to put in your
I know.
passcode. I'm sorry. You're right. Mr. Nord.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I have an iPad, Ronnie, so if you get really
I am
confused,
right
yeah,
now.
Yeah, be sure to ask me there. They're in the kindergarten out there, can't teach you all kinds of cool
I know
stuff
it.
about this thing. You know, a few weeks ago, we had a terrible tragedy in the city of Taft. And a lot of people were involved in it, and we have talked at length about the response and what we learned, and what a great job city staff did, what a great job the police department did, and Chief Whiting, and responding to those things. And I thought back on the news conference. And it's interesting, if you watch as those people descend on a small community when they smell a tragedy, and they were controlled from getting into the site by police tape, by barrier tape. So while they were waiting for the news conference, which the chief and the sheriff were working very hard to make sure that they had accurate, up-to-date, timely information that they could disseminate to the news agencies, and that's when they're going to have the news conference. They had to see to the safety and the well-being of the children first and foremost, and let those people know that. My hat's off to them for that, because those people are impatient, and during the course of that impatience, they would weed their way through the crowd, trying to drum something up, trying to suck a story out. And in a hurry to get the news out there first, I believe it was Channel 17 who reported the first death at Taft High. At that time, I got to thinking about it, because I thought, well, about half the parents there knew that their children were safe. I mean, you know, phones are a wonderful thing, and kids can text, and it's amazing. But how about the half that didn't know? The half that didn't know. So through some irresponsible, untimely reporting, if you're one of the half that didn't know if your kids were okay, and you heard that on the radio, well, that was your kid, instantaneously. That had to be. And that was also a news agency, could be the first one out there with a story. Had to hurry up. Couldn't wait for the truth. Didn't worry about the negative impact. Only worried about being first. And I remember when the chief and Donnie Youngblood were addressing that crowd of reporters, immediately they got to the whole gun control issue, the evil gun thing. And it struck me that I haven't done the research, but I would have to guess in the 102 years that the city of Taft has been incorporated, I've only been here since 1990, having lived in the city, but I bet you in that 102 years, if you added up all the times that a criminal used a firearm commission of a crime that resulted in great bodily harm or death of a human being, you could probably add all of those up on these two hands in 102 years. In that same 102 years, practically daily, thousands of legally owned firearms are put to use for self-defense, informal target practice, organized shooting events, Taft High has a trap club, or hunting. Thousands of them are put to use daily by law-abiding citizens. The tragedy that unfolded that day was a very human tragedy, and even though it manifested itself that day as a tragedy that's been taking place for weeks or months or perhaps even years, and there's a lot of different stories out there, but they're going to get to the bottom of that. What would drive a young man growing up in a great rural city like Taft to think that his plight was so desperate that he had no choice but to take a life of a fellow student? That's the tragedy. To focus on the implement is to lose sight of the cause. It's to fail in your attempt to understand what happened before you even get started. If you look at what happened in the city of Taft, and you look at the other things that are fresh on your mind, whether it's Columbine or it's Newtown or it's Casper, Wyoming, to not use all of those and look back and look for the clues and look for the cries for help that went unanswered. Let's try to correlate all of those things and disseminate that information, and that with a heightened sense of awareness and God's good graces, then just maybe next time we can identify the tragedy before it happens. We can save lives on the either end of any instrument of destruction that's employed in something like this. But only by understanding the true nature of the root cause of this and applying all of our efforts to that are we going to solve any problems. By lying to ourselves and focusing on the implement, we're not going to do us any good, all right? We're going to fail. Our kids deserve better than that. So what I'm trying to tell everybody is don't buy into that whole hocus pocus about it's the evil assault weapon or it's the evil high-cap mag. I'm sure everybody's scratching their head. I'm sure everybody knows about Newtown. Everybody knows what happened there. Everybody knows about what happened here. But does everybody know what happened in Casper, Wyoming on December the 1st? No? Not a lot of hands. I'll tell you why. You know who told me about it? The young sculptor who did our work here in the city of Taft. When he called me to tell me that his heart bled for this city, Benjamin Victor told me about the fact that it just happened in Casper, Wyoming. That day, 25-year-old young man took the life of his father's girlfriend. She died on the street in front of their house. Then he went to the school that his father taught, and while his father saw the attack coming and tried to hustle all the kids out of the classroom, shot his father in the head in front of the class and killed him, and then took his own life. Now you ask yourself, well, why didn't that make national news? That's right in line with all the other stuff we hear about, isn't it? I'll tell you why. Because that young man used a knife to kill that woman at their house. Then he went into the classroom in front of all those kids, and he shot his father in the head with a bow. And when his father didn't die, he got in a wrestling match and he finished killing his father with a knife. And then he took his own life with a knife. Now, if you as a reporter report that, well, then you're going to create a fog. Now, wait a second. If I tell everybody about that, And in the same breath, I tell them if I outlaw these horrible high-cap mags and these horrible assault weapons, then nothing like that will happen again. But wait a second. Something like that happened didn't have anything to do with high-cap mags or assault weapons or firearms of any kind. So you mean if I go down that road, then these things are still going to happen? That maybe it's a mental health issue? It's understanding what's going on around you? Maybe that's what we ought to be focusing on? Not taking away the God-given rights of law-abiding citizens? If you could legislate these things out of existence, how many laws do we have about driving? How many laws do we have about alcohol? You know how many people we kill every day on the streets of the United States in alcohol-related traffic accidents? 41 a day, every day. Today, we killed 41 people. Now, wait a second. We passed laws that says you can't drink and drive. Yesterday, we killed 41 people. Tomorrow, you know what we're going to do? We're going to kill 41 people. Another disturbing note, and this is very disturbing. Last year in combat, we lost 240 some odd American lives in combat. Today, on the average, 22 American men and women from the service commit suicide. 22. Now, that's not a firearm-related issue. And removing high-cap mags and removing assault weapons from the hands of law-abiding citizens won't change that. That is a mental health issue. That is where our focus ought to be. I kept watching the TV to see somebody trying to fake a tear in front of a TV camera for the 22 American men and women who committed suicide today. I didn't see it. I bet you don't see it tomorrow. You won't. So everybody, what we need to do is understand what's going on around us. What pressures are there that we're not taking care of? Who do we need to give a hug to? What cries for help are we missing? Then and only then are we going to stop the tragedy. That's all I have.
Very well said, thank you. Mr. Miller?
Well, thank you, Mr. Knorr. That was very enlightening. I want to apologize tonight. I'm just coming off a terrible cold, and my brain's about a half a mile from my mouth, so if I'm saying stuff that doesn't make sense tonight, that's what it is. That's all I have, Mr.
Thank you, Mr. Miller. Hope you feel better. I just had a more of a comment, and I know we're going to get to department reports, and I don't want to put the chief on any kind of a spot, but there seems to have been, at least to my attention, a bit of an increase of maybe home invasions or break-ins, automobile,
Simple burglaries.
just simple burglaries, and I just wanted to make sure that the community understood that that's part of prison realignment, folks. But also that there are things that we can do, and I'm sure the chief could say it better, but there are things that we should be doing as citizens now that we didn't have to do in the past, like locking our front doors and locking your cars. Things like starting your car in the morning to let it warm up before you either head for work or take the kids to school, and somebody walks up and gets in your car and drives away.
Leaving things of value.
Leaving things of value in sight in a vehicle or in the yard, leaving your house unlocked. Turn a light on, whatever you got to do, but it really has become evident that we have to change a little bit of what we're doing here in Taft also, and that means being more aware. And I know as for my neighbors, I keep an eye out about people moving around in our neighborhood that I don't know or I'm not aware of. So I'm asking folks in town to start your own neighborhood watch, if you would. If you see something suspicious, call the police department. They will do something about it. If you witness something, if you have a question, I know the police department will address those issues. So just kind of a point of awareness. We need to police ourselves a little bit too. So that's all I have to say tonight. So moving on to department reports. Are there any department reports? And honestly, Chief, I didn't want to put you on the spot, but. Oh, sure. I was going to email you, but I can't get this thing to email right yet, so.
I originally wasn't going to have a department report tonight, but after Councilman Carrera came out with some of the stats, I thought I would share some of ours. And some of our thoughts and let you know some of the things that happened over this weekend I thought you might find entertaining. First and foremost, thank you for the kind words. Our officers really are working hard for the city. I can't begin to commend them enough for all the work that they do. You're right, crime is up. In almost all theft-related categories, it's more than 30% on all theft-related crimes. Grand Theft Auto's at 40%. And let me share with you this little tidbit from this weekend. I'm sure the city manager's heard this before, but he's involved.
I almost got killed.
He stole a car?
Well, no, but he knows where one went to. Over the weekend, we, for lack of a better word, enjoyed at least 4 Grand Theft Autos within a 24-hour period, which is unusual for us. I can tell you that all suspects are in custody. All vehicles have been recovered. There was minor damage to a police car at the end of the pursuit. And of course, the city manager was within an inch of being taken out by a high-speed suspect. But he makes a good witness. We'll have to put him in the report. But anyway, the first one was a school resource officer spotted some kids that he knows that were driving a car that he thought, hey, maybe they shouldn't be driving that car. And of course, the car was reported stolen vehicle. They got it cornered in the Albertsons parking lot. They were taken into custody. Within 5 minutes, the sheriff's department had a vehicle stolen in South Taft. As the report of the vehicle goes out, turns out our lieutenant is right behind the vehicle, and followed by a high-speed chase through South Taft until the suspect lost control of the vehicle, and then he was taken into custody, but not without a small amount of damage to one of our cars. Then on Saturday, we received a call from Delano PD as they had a Taft vehicle stopped in their jurisdiction with 2 kids in it, and wanted to know if the owner could be contacted and say, do you know where your car is? And of course, when we contacted him, he says, yeah, it's right here in the driveway. And then he looks and it's not in the driveway. And of course, then we take a Grand Theft Auto report. The suspects are in custody. The last one is probably the best one. I saved this one for you guys because I thought you would like this one. So we get a report of a vehicle driving recklessly from Maricopa towards Taft on Saturday morning. Officer goes to Wood and 33rd Street to wait for the vehicle to drive by. The vehicle does drive by, pulls the vehicle over. He asks the driver for driver's license, registration, proof of insurance, and the 13-year-old promptly responded he doesn't have that he just stole the truck. They call his mother on the phone, who's currently talking with a deputy from San Luis Obispo about the Grand Theft Auto report, so we were able to work that out and get him safely home, and the vehicle recovered. So to address your comments, yeah, crime is up. I can't say enough that the people need to leave no items of value in their vehicles. All vehicles should be kept locked. If you leave it in there, you're going to lose it. I can't make that clear enough. The burglars are getting a little more brazen. We actually had not a home invasion, but a in-progress burglary where the people were home and in the house sleeping. And those kinds of things we don't have very much. But now they're getting a little more brazen about it. Thefts are up. We're catching them realistically more than we've been able to catch them in our careers in law enforcement, but they're just not staying thanks to 109. So they're back out and they're committing more crimes.
How are the requests for CCWs? Are they up?
Yeah, we issued 22 CCWs last year, and we already have at least that number for the month of January. So CCW permits issues are going up. And the sheriff's department, I talked to the sergeant in charge of CCWs, there has increased also quite a bit. And so it now has the wait times for the sheriff. So he has to process almost 5,200 or more just this year. So everybody is trying to take the law-abiding gun part seriously because they know crime is up. They know we can't be everywhere at once. And like I said, the officers, I can't thank them enough. They're doing a great job. The problem is that criminals, when they get let out and do exactly what criminals do, they commit crime. You just have to catch them. Any questions from you folks?
Very good, thank you.
Great
But
job.
you enjoy that.
Yeah.
Thanks, guys.
Statistic for Taft?
Thank you.
Chief.
Oh,
That's all right.
Are there any other department reports? Then we shall move on to city manager statements. Mr. Jones.
Thank you, Mayor. I'd just like to point out again, the Taft Police Department, even though they lock these guys up and they're let go, they're not getting discouraged, and they are following every lead on all these burglaries and break-ins because it bothers them that this happening in our town because, we're not used to that kind of stuff, and they're not getting discouraged, and I think they're doing a great job, and a job that you could easily get discouraged or not, so that's commendable. I have a couple updates for public works projects. Y'all seen out there on Hillard Street, Rails to Trails project is they're finally moving dirt, and I heard some comments through the community, and people were wondering how come, it was on and off, and then there was equipment out there, then it was moved, and we were on a $20,000 squirrel hunt that finally ended with favorable, Fish and Game finally said, okay, go ahead and do it. So that was favorable to us. We're doing it. It cost us some money, but we're finally turning dirt. We're going to lose some of our amenities out there that we had planned because of the extra expenses to deal with the environmental issues. But we have a nice black vinyl fence out there that's supposed to keep all the critters out. And it was kind of comical. I drove down Hillard Street and I saw what the oil companies were doing, and I thought they ran the Rails to Trails the wrong way because they started it was going the other way. But the oil companies are relocating some of their facilities out there, and people are wondering what's going on. Some people are assuming that they're already building houses out there, and that is not the case. The utilities have nothing to do with the houses. It's either Rails to Trails related or it's oil companies relocating some of their facilities. We had a bid opening for the 10th Street paving project, which will be paving from Ash to Kern Street, which includes restriping of the road, and a new four-way stop will be placed at San Emilio and 10th Street, and that's been a request from the high school for many, many, many years. And because it involved traffic engineering restriping, we were able to get it completed as part of this grant project. So we're hopeful that that will be under construction in the next 45 days, depending on the contractor schedule. And that's about all I have.
Good. All good news. Thank you.
Thank you.
Item number 9, city attorney statements.
Nothing to add,
Prentice.
Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate it. Item number 10, future agenda requests. Anybody have anything that they would like to?
Not tonight, thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Okay. Moving on to the consent calendar, items 11 through 18. All items on the consent calendar shall be considered routine and will be enacted by one roll call vote. There will be no separate discussion of any of these items unless a member of the city council requests specific items to be removed from the consent calendar for separate action. Any item removed from the consent calendar will be considered after the regular business items. Items are 11, the minutes of January 15th regular meeting and January 23rd special meeting. Item number 12 is payment of bills. 13 is abeyance of merit increase for department heads. 14, revised annual single audit report for fiscal year 2010-11. 15, Transportation Development Act funds annual audit for fiscal year 10-11. Let's see. Yes. And item number, am I missing a page? Yeah, there we go. Sorry. Item number 16, City Investment Policy Annual Review. 17, Resolution of the City Councils of the City of Taft revising promissory notes number 16 through 25 between the City of Taft and the Taft Community Development Agency. Item number 18 is a resolution of the Taft Community Development Agency revising promissory notes 16 through 25 between the City of Taft and the Taft Community Development Agency. And lastly, that's it. Okay, cool. It's a mouthful. Do any council members wish any items to be removed from the consent calendar? I would like to remove item number 13, please. Okay, so I would now entertain a motion to approve consent calendar items 11, 12, 14, 15, 16, 17, and 18, I believe. Yep.
Take the motion.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. May we have a roll call, please?
Councilmember Farr?
Yes.
Councilmember Miller?
Yes.
Councilmember North?
Yes.
Councilmember Waltrip?
Yes.
Mayor Linder?
Yes, thank you. We'll move back to item number 11, abeyance of merit increases for department heads. Mr. Jones.
Thank you, Mayor. As a result of the anticipated shortfall between revenues and expenses for the current fiscal year, management has been working on options to further reduce costs and seek alternatives to layoffs. On November 20th, 2012, your city council voted to forego their stipends for the remainder of the fiscal year. Another cost-saving option for the council to consider is to place an abeyance and merit increases for positions designated as department heads for the remainder of the fiscal year. The abated increases may be restored at the city council's discretion during the 2013-14 fiscal year. If approved by the council, this action would abate merit increases for the classifications of city manager, finance director, human resources director / assistant city manager, planning and development services director, police chief, and records administrator. The department heads have agreed to this option for cost savings, and it was discussed at the Finance Committee meeting on January 29th, 2013.
Thank you, Mr. Jones. I asked this to be pulled because this is one of the things that I think the public needs to know. And this was brought to the Finance Committee meeting, as Mr. Jones stated, as some of that out-of-the-box thinking. But these management people that we have working for the city, this was their idea. This was not asked of them. It was not an arm twisting, but they saw it was the right thing to do at this time. These merit increases are normally mandatory and earned. I mean, it's built into their salary schedule, into their working relationship with the city, and you know, to forego these for the immediate future, I think is commendable. No other city employee is being asked or requested to give up their steps and columns, but our senior staff here brought this to the Finance Committee meeting as a gesture, I believe, and it just was very, I'll just say it was very heartwarming that these people who are entitled to this money and have earned this money, probably more so this last year than any department heads have ever earned money, and they're willing to give that up for the betterment of the city. And I couldn't let this go through a consent calendar without making that statement. So I would like to say thank you. It's every little bit helps, and we're hopeful that 13-14 is going to be a much healthier year for the city of Taft. So thank you. That's the reason why I asked for it to be pulled. Anybody else?
Well, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I believe we talked about in a real team, everybody has to feel the pinch, just like everybody benefits when things are flush. And the best way to lead is from the front. And when you're a leader, that's where you are and that's where you go. You lead by example. You can talk all the smack you want, but it's what you do and the example you set that has the most impact on those that you lead. So my hat's off. We got a whole group of leaders right now, and thank God, because that's what going to get us through this tough time. Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Moore. Mr. Cryer?
Too bad that the state or the federal government don't follow the employees' leads, you know, our head department, because the city of Taft has a lot to show to our other leaders in our country, and that's another reason why it's a great place to live and live here.
Thank you. Mr. Waldron?
Well, everybody's pitching and doing their job, and once things gets better, I think they'll see a great improvement and attaboy later on as things get a lot better. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Miller?
Again, these folks are showing that doing your job, not worrying about your job, and finding ways to do your job better and come up with some innovative ways. I'm sorry that it has to come to them cutting their salary but they chose to do that, and I'm very proud of the staff for that and their leadership. So my hat's off to them, and thank you very much.
Thank you. At this time, I would entertain a motion to approve a resolution of the City Council of the City of Taft adopting the abeyance of merit increases for positions designated as department heads for the remainder of the 12-13 fiscal year.
Motion.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. I'm going to give it to Mr. Waldrop this time. My ear's not so plugged on this side. Any further comments, sir? Mr. Cryer?
No comment.
Mr. North?
Thank you again. That's the way you lead people. Thank you.
That's right.
Mr. Miller?
No comment.
And I will again express my gratitude. May we have a roll call, please?
Councilmember Waldrop?
Yes.
Councilmember North?
Yes.
Councilmember Miller?
Yeah.
Councilmember Carr?
Yes.
Mayor Linder?
Yes. Item number 17, closure of the Pacific Gas and Electric Taft Crew Yard. Mr. Jones.
It has been brought to the attention of staff that PG&E is planning on moving their local crew yard from Taft to Bakersfield. The move has the potential of having a detrimental effect on the west side. In the event of power outages, southwest Kern County would be without power for an extended amount of time. Crews currently working out of the Taft yard would be dispatched at a Bakersfield yard, adding additional response time during emergencies. When the power is out, oil pumping units shut down, businesses have to shut their doors, local individuals are inconvenienced, and medical issues can arise. Additional response times would only enhance each of these and other unmentioned problems. Repair crews traveling to and from Bakersfield would also increase in an already congested roadways between Taft and Bakersfield.
Thank you, Mr. Jones. When this, I think I found out about this just about the same time everybody else did, and made a few calls, received a few calls, and my first concern obviously was the reduction of service in the Taft area, but then I got to thinking a little farther out. We complain about our response, but what about the folks in Maricopa, Fellows, McKittrick? I don't know how far PG&E goes, maybe even Cuyama, I don't know. We went through this, maybe you guys will remember, we went through this some time ago where PG&E was going to shut down their yard and their facility, and it was just, you know, Taft's too small to deal with or whatever the case may be, but I think it's not good business sense to do so. Many things have come up. I know I was told that what about people with health issues? That an extra hour getting from Bakersfield to Taft to restore power in a neighborhood, whether it's a fuse or a transformer, what the case may be, what kind of an impact that would have. And so I've made a few calls, and I have some information that I just got today, and I'll give to the appropriate people here at City Hall. But I think the least we can do is get some letters to PG&E expressing our, well, at least my opinion that they should not remove they only have one crew here, and put their people on the highway traveling to Bakersfield now to go to work and coming home, increasing traffic flows. But I think most importantly is the idea that we're not important enough to keep a crew here with the resources that was mentioned about the oil fields, certainly the health issues of folks living here in town, and just our overall livability. I don't want to be without air conditioning or heating or lighting to keep the criminals away from my home, and I want people protected. So I guess I'm asking direction from you gentlemen as to how far we want to go with this, and I think at least some correspondence with them expressing our discontent.
Well, once we close shop here, we'll never get it back. And I just see it as some bean counters in PG&E's offices somewhere saying, oh, well, this is a good thing to do. You know, those bean counters, they don't live here, they're not in the community, they don't see the big picture, they're just looking at the numbers. They don't see the territory that is being covered by this crew and the response times and those kinds of things. So I wholeheartedly agree, Mr. Mayor, and I think you should draft a letter with the staff's input, and let's get it off as quickly as possible.
Thank you. Mr. Norton?
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. I would be in total agreement with what Councilman Miller said, as well as I would think this would be one of those times when our corporate partners would want to get involved. It's a very real fiscal impact to them when their equipment's not moving. It's not just a matter of for that time period, things aren't going up and down, but things start backing up rather rapidly in a production stream. And it can create some very real long-term detrimental effects. And I would believe that they would want to partner with all of us in this and expressing our concern and disdain with the potential removal of those guys. So perhaps that would be one of those times you could
You know,
sit down with our
we're on the
partners.
verge of growth here, and we don't need to lose a service that is valuable as we're growing. So, you know, this is not a good timing for that.
I agree. Mr. Waldron?
Well, the city of Taft has been a team player with PG&E, and now they're going to desert us. I don't think that's fair. I would sign that letter right now, so I'm all for, we got to keep something here.
Very good. Mr. Craig?
I can concur with the council members, you know, about PG&E staying here, because having a business there in Derby Acres, and also there's 366 citizens that live there, it seems like at least once a month or twice, it's about lunchtime, the power goes out. And we have to close the doors, can't serve anybody, and it impacts the business there, and I'm sure it impacts all the oil fields in that area there. And I know that the power and stuff there is antiquated, and we have a little more breakdowns than normal, but the response time there as it is, even with having a place here in Taft, is about 2 to 3 hours before they get the problem fixed, if not longer. I can imagine what it'd be if they were in Bakersfield to come out there to fix the problem. And it touches everybody's lives here. Like I say, if somebody has a medical condition or needs for their condition to maintain their health, they would suffer, and we just cannot tolerate in our time here, and we must go ahead and urge PG&E to stay here and continue their operation here. And like Councilman Waldrop said, we're growing. Things are happening here. There's a lot of growth happening, so I encourage us to do a resolution to keep them here.
Great, thank you. The other point I wanted to make was that in the event of a natural disaster, I would feel much better knowing that there is a PG&E crew on this side of the valley that might get pulled to go to Bakersfield, but the truth of the matter is they would probably be able to stay here and start restoring services and things like that. So it's just a comfort zone too.
I believe a lot of those guys live in Taft.
They do?
So that means they'd have to drive to Bakersfield and drive
Absolutely.
back with their equipment.
Yeah.
What do you think, like Homeland Security and stuff, with all the oil wells and stuff we have here, that if we ever did have God forgive, you know, we'll go out there and do total damage to our oil field, at least to have crews here, among other resources, to keep the oil still pumping and servicing the community or our nation.
Very good. Well, I appreciate it, gentlemen, and I will set staff to work on a friendly reminder that we're here and that we need their services and they need to stay here. And perhaps we can get the chamber to, please, Kathy, come on up. That just clicked when I looked at you.
I'm just wondering. We would love to have addresses so that our membership can respond to this. So is it the Public Utilities Commission or is it the local, to whom do we address
Yeah,
this?
I've done a little bit of research and I've pulled up emails for everybody from the executive vice president down to the distribution operations supervisor. So I'm going to get this to Mrs. Hudgens, and I think she can back this up and get mailing addresses if necessary. But at least we should send these emails out.
Absolutely.
And I was even thinking about, just for the fun of it, calling customer service and voice
Government rep, too.
Yeah, well,
Christine Forster.
that's a good idea. But just calling customer service and expressing my concerns about them closing the local service yard here. They wouldn't know how to deal with it, but at least it's a recorded call, and if, you know, it's an 800 number, it won't cost you a dime to do it. So if you think about it.
What's the date of their anticipate closure?
They're making plans to do so right now. So we need to move on this and let them
Well,
know that.
Mrs. Hudgens, if you could forward that information to the chamber, that'd be great.
I'll scan it and send it out to
Page
everybody.
these
I had this on
Thank
an
you.
email, and I'll get the email to you both also. That way you can just click on and send messages. So, okay. Thank you, gentlemen. At this time, we will be entering into closed session, and the city council will hold a closed session pursuant to Government Code Section 54957.6 to give direction to its labor negotiator concerning labor negotiations, all units. And pursuant to Government Code Section 54956.8 for the council to give instructions to its negotiator, Craig Jones, regarding negotiation for real property sunset rails. We are not adjourned.
I believe that you can go ahead, we can pull the item for labor negotiation. That
Oh.
way you don't have to report an outcome because there's nothing to discuss.
Okay, then we will only be talking about negotiation for real property sunset rails. Thank you. We are adjourned to closed session. Thank you for being here.